All right, thanks for joining us this morning. We have Representative Mike Gallagher in studio with this morning. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, first thing we'd like to start out talking about this morning is the violence in Charlottesville. There has been some criticism of President Trump's response to this whole thing, and we want to know what you think.
Sure. I think everyone in public office has a responsibility to unequivocally denounce this type of violence and also the ideology that gives life to it. This type of white nationalism, this neo-Nazism, has absolutely no place in our society. In fact, it's antithetical to our founding values, our fundamental creed in America, which states that all men are created equal. And I think in crises like this, where we see rising passions on both sides, it is the particular responsibility of the president to make it clear that there's absolutely no room for this in our society and bring the nation together. And so that's why I was somewhat critical of the president's initial response. I hope the White House continues to clarify, and I hope rather than escalating tension and throwing gasoline on the fire, we can all come together as Americans and understand this has absolutely no place in our society.
All right, so President has plans to unveil a new strategy in the war in Afghanistan, and you have some war experience. We want to know really what you think of all this.
Sure. The first thing, I think it's important that we don't repeat the mistakes that we made in Iraq, where we pulled out precipitously, almost for entirely political reasons. And what we saw was dangerous actors, ISIS, other bad groups, filled the vacuum that we left. And so I think for us to completely pull out just because for political reasons would be a nightmare for our national security interests. But the second thing that I hope the president is completely honest about what we are trying to achieve in Afghanistan. This is the longest war in our country's history. There are many Americans who have profound doubts about whether we should be there in the first place or whether we should continue to fight. And so I hope he lays it out there and makes the case for why we need to not only fight this war, but win this war. And more broadly, I hope he puts it in the context of our need to modernize and rebuild the military and reverse the damage done by defense sequester. So this is a huge opportunity to unite the country, and I hope he takes advantage of it. All
right, you have an event going on today here locally, and that's recognizing some Vietnam veterans. You'll be in Luxembourg tonight. Talk about that.
Well, we did a similar event in Appleton, and in contrast to the present day, where for my generation of vets, Iraq and Afghanistan, one of the great things is we came home to a very supportive populace here in the United States. Every day someone thanks me for my service. I feel guilty. I say thank my parents. They went through far more than I did. But our Vietnam vets didn't experience the same thing when they came home. And so we're just trying to provide that recognition, and we're trying to unite the veterans community. And it's all about veterans taking care of other veterans. And in an otherwise divided time, this is one thing that does unite the country. And so I'm looking forward to the event, and I love just hearing the stories from that generation of vets.
All right, last thing real quick, Foxconn's been a big talker in the state. Touch on that a little bit.
Sure. Well, that is a state issue, so I try to stay in my lane. But I think it has the potential to be transformative and a long-term economic win for the state. But I do think we need to think more broadly for all of our manufacturers in the state who've been investing in their workforce for years, all of whom really tell me the same thing, which is that we have jobs available, but we can't get people with the right skills who can pass the basic tests and will show up to work every day. That's really a fundamental challenge we face not only in Wisconsin, our labor force participation and that skills gap, but all across the country. So we need to be thinking about how we fix that problem more broadly.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. We always appreciate when you stop by.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.